Well, hello everyone and welcome to rounds 9 and 10 of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. We head to Scotland, we head to Knockhill for these rounds of the championship. My name is Connery Maddock. I'm joined by the ever wonderful Paul Smith for this one as we get to set ourselves set for the shortest lap on the calendar. I'm certainly very excited for this one, Paul. Drivers have mixed reactions at the moment with how they're dealing with the circuit, so this should be one of the more unique races of this season.
It certainly is going to be a challenge for those drivers out there, that is for sure. But Knockhill is a tremendous venue, a tremendous track. It's basically a big roller coaster for these drivers to race around, and really it is a difficult challenge to get right. You can make overtakes around here. Anybody who says you can't overtake around here doesn't know how to drive around this track. There are places to make moves out there, and of course you can force mistakes out of drivers as well. It's a proper old school track, is this.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, and the racing around here, at least in the real world, tends to be very enthralling as well. But before we get deep into things, let's have a look at the format of what is going to be happening here today. Of course, drivers currently underway with regards to their open qualifying. They get quite a while to do it as well, 17 minutes to be able to set their fast lap times. We get ourselves race number 1, 25 minutes, of course. Then we get a little bit of a break, 5 minutes, and then we get ourselves into race number 2. With that reverse grid in effect. The top 6 of the results from race number 1 will get themselves swapped around, and everyone else will have to line up in results order for race number 2. There's the points breakdown as well. We get score points all the way down to P15 in this series. Here's the standings, and well, it could not be any closer between the top 2 in the championship. Kevin Ellis Jr. and Graham Carroll tied on 145 points. Kevin Ellis Jr., though, of course, on countback, he's currently leading the championship. Sebastian Job there recovered relatively well in the previous event. He's still in 3rd place with 139. That is your defending champion of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. Peter Berryman still down there, still within the championship picture. We can't forget that, Paul. He's still there, but of course he needs to have a stellar back end to this season.
Yeah, he's had a bit of a run of bad luck, not just in this series, but also yesterday in the Porsche Carrera Esports Supercup as well. So he needs to break that and really get his head down and get himself a good result. But as you say, he's not out of that championship hunt yet. You know, you can't write him off yet. But Josh Thompson leading up the best of the rest. Will Chadwick ahead of Jack Sedgwick with Jamie Moon, Blair Mann and Will Tregertha. I mean, those mid-table are really going to be pushing on, but we've had half the season, Connery. That title chase is still tight.
It absolutely is. You know, it's about what I was going to come on to. We got ourselves the last 4 rounds of the season, 4 rounds already complete, or rather 4 events, shall I say. Of course, so we get 2 races on every single race day. So here we are at Knockhill on the 27th of March. In a couple of weeks' time, we'll be heading to Silverstone National Circuit as our 2nd trip to Silverstone in this season. Of course, we had our season opening there at the GP layouts. Then we go to Donington Park, and then we head back to Brands Hatch, this time on the full GP layout, as opposed to the Indy layouts that we used in round number 2, which was a similarly very short circuit compared to here at Knockhill as well. Let's have a look at this circuit then, because of course the only FIA approved circuit up in Scotland, up in Fife, just a couple of miles north of Dunfermline. It's a very, very short 9 turns, 1.26 miles. It is these races tend to be very fast and frenetic, and well, elbows out for sure.
Yeah, when you're talking about a 46 second lap around here, it certainly is fast and frenetic, and these drivers, they're going to be concentrating so hard to make sure that they don't make any mistakes around here, because these races, they will be intense around here. There's no room to breathe or make a mistake around here.
Absolutely, and well, I'm certainly very excited for this one. We will have to step aside just for a second though, because we have our track guide by Michael Weddle.
Hello, my name is Michael Weddle, driver of the Rethink Racing number 7 Porsche 992 GT3 Cup car, here to bring you the round 5 track guide of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great British Championship. For being one of the shortest laps on the calendar, Knockhill packs a lot of punch in a very small package. Nearly every corner has a tricky elevation change or leads directly onto the next corner, or both. It's one of the newest tracks on the iRacing service, so it's truly a unique challenge for everyone on the grid. Now let's go take a gander of this tricky circuit. While we look at turn 1 in closer detail, we first have to take a note of the first sector. From turn 1 at Duffy Step to turns 5 and 6 at the chicane, it's important to get each corner perfect, as the entry of one flows into the next corner pretty quickly. Turn 1 is lovingly known as Duffy Step, with the elevation change on the exit of the corner giving it its name. You have to be committed transitioning through the apex, often soaring the car onto two wheels and settling pointed right at the apex of the turn. Right out of turn 2, the car should be on the racing line for turn 3. It's easy to make a mistake here as the car will be light coming off 2, with very little runoff on the exit. While turn 7 seemingly stands on its own, it's an incredibly important corner to get right. The entry is off camber and you'll be climbing a hill to apex at the top, and again you'll be committing using all the curb on the crest, throwing the car onto two wheels. It's important to get a decent run down Railway Straight, and if anyone's made a mess at the chicane, they can throw in some cheeky moves here. The final corner, and the best overtaking opportunity on the track, is Taylor's Hairpin. You'll want to use the elevation change to help slow the car down throughout the corner, but you'll need to be careful that you don't overshoot. Once you get through the corner, you'll want to try and catch your breath, as it's your only opportunity to do so on the front straight. It's a lot you'll need to soak into Master Knockhill, so let's go take a look at a lap when you do. So to start off the lap, you want to make sure you get a good exit off the hairpin. You want to use all the runoff area on the exit to maximise your speed going along the straight. You're going to be reaching speeds of 220 km an hour as you get ready to get onto the brake. Spot your braking point and down one gear for Duffus. Over the crest onto two wheels, settle the car through the left-hander and down a further 2 gears for McIntyres. Use all the runoff area and get onto the throttle nice and early. Through the compressions at Butchers, spot your turn and end point for the chicane using all the curb on both sides. Use the runoff area on exit as well. Spot your braking point for Clark's down 1 gear, use the curb on the entry but not too much, and again using all the runoff area. Through the left-hander at Hislop's, and now you're just spotting your braking point for the Taylor hairpin. You want to go down the gears all the way down to second, you turn it in nice and early, use the curb on the entry to rotate the car around and pick up the throttle nice and early. Use all the curb on the exit, and as you run up the straight, you've just completed a lap of Knockhill Racing Circuit. Hope you all enjoyed the 5th track walk of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great British Championship. The racing should be mega at this tight, challenging circuit.
Well, very big thank you there to Michael Wedel for giving us that track guide here of this Knockhill racing circuit. Of course, Michael, unfortunately not able to be with us for this race here today because he's actually doing some real-life testing at this very same circuit this weekend, Paul.
Yeah, it certainly is, and yeah, giving it an old try out at Knockhill for the SMRC Mini Cup. So wish him all the best, and hopefully all goes well today for him. But it does mean that we've got 18 drivers out on track to give us some fantastic entertainment here of a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, absolutely. These are the standings on the left-hand side currently in qualifying with just under 8 minutes left to go in the session. So we're just over halfway through this qualifying. Kevin Ellis Jr., provisional pole position at the moment. Sebastian Job about a 1/10 of a second back at the moment. And you think, well, 1/10 of a second usually isn't, well, it usually is not that much time. However, on a circuit as short as this, a 1/10 of a second can feel like a mile away.
It does feel like a mile away. It's an absolutely incredible track, and as I said, we've dipped into the 46s. I said we were going to get a 46-second lap round there, and Ellis Jr. goes even quicker that last lap. So he's pulled out the gap to 0.2 of a second now over Sebastian Job. This is absolutely just it's crazy because drivers are tripping over each other, either on out laps or on the fast laps. So you've got to try and find yourself some space, and you're not able to do it. And you saw over the chicane there as well. The cars just bounce over that. It's the only way that you can go quick through the chicane is just launching the car over the curbs.
One driver that I've noticed that's struggling at the moment, well, it's Job's teammate of Graham Carroll. He's down the order somewhat here, down in P13 here in the at this stage of qualifying, which is not ideal for your tied championship leader at the moment with Kevin Ellis Jr. So Graham Carroll, well, in these final 6.5 minutes, he really needs to pull his finger out here and try and get that Oracle Red Bull Racing Esports car vaguely near the front to be able to continue on his championship challenge. Here's Sebastian Job heading his way across the line here, 50.8 that time around, so that was another sort of wind-up lap for him to go just that little bit quicker on this one, you would have hoped, if you are the #1 driver, as there is Graham Carroll. I was wondering when he was going to make an impact.
And of course, this is a home track for Graham and a couple other drivers out there. So yeah, it really is a track that I mean, they've not had the most amount of time to practice on here in the sim in iRacing, because it is just a couple of builds old now. So these drivers, they won't be completely familiar with it, but it's certainly going to give them plenty of challenges and trials and tribulations. And look at this. This is what you do on the qualifying lap. You take the wide line in, cut in for a light apex to get the run out the corner, up the hill. It's uphill all the way up to the start line, in towards Duffer's Dip. You've got cars coming out of pit road. You've got to be careful not to launch the car over that curb, through the left at Leslie's, and then already you're at McIntyre, the right-hander. Go back downhill through Butcher. There's a dip here into the chicane. You look at the sky. You've launched the car as if you're trying to fly through the chicane. Now towards Clark Curve. You've got to get the run out of this corner. And in fact, Graham Carroll is going to abandon that lap.
Yeah, he has decided he might have gotten himself a 1x by being a little bit too aggressive over the curves at the chicane, spam towards the outside when coming up to Brabham. We've got a spinner in the background there. Can't quite tell who that was, unfortunately, but troubles in qualifying for some of the drivers. There's been a lot of frustration at the track in the driver chat, shall we say. The drivers not having the best of times out there trying to deal with this very, very tricky circuit, as we're riding on board with your current provisional pole position sitter by about 1/10 of a second, and you can see how much Kevin has to launch that Porsche all over those curves. If you've watched any real-life race from Knockhill, you know how much drivers are pretty much every category try to launch themselves up over the curbs, go up on two wheels, because that's just simply the fastest way to go through there.
It certainly is, and yeah, the drivers are complaining about the circuit. Well, I'm sorry, it's the same for everybody out there. So you know, you've got to just get on with it. You know, you can't. The problem is, if you're complaining, as Kevin Ellis Jr. again, another quick lap time from him pushes forward and further ahead of Graham Carroll, but it's the same track for everybody. You've all got the same challenge ahead of you. There's no point in wasting negative energy and focusing your thoughts on how bad the track is for you if you find it that way. Focus on, right, okay, let's see how we can extract the most out of this track. Let's see how we can get the most out of it, because, as I say, it's the same for everyone as this track, so you're better on just get on with it and stop complaining.
Yep, exactly. I couldn't really have said that better myself. So, you know, the drivers do have to deal with what has been given, and, well, there's certainly some drivers that don't back down from a challenge, and I think that's sort of the attitude that you need to take coming into this one, instead of complaining all the time. At least that's my opinion. Less time complaining, more time practicing. But as Graham Carroll heads his way up and across the line, 48 seconds, that's not going to be a representative lap time for the number 21 car, as he gets himself through and onto one of his last fast laps here. Of course, remember, it is a heat racing open qualifying session, so therefore the drivers will not get the opportunity to complete their laps once that timer hits 0, so they have a little bit less time than you would have thought in a regular open qualifying session. So about 2 minutes to go now, as you see one of the Apex Racing Team cars head its way through Taylor's Bend. That is Kevin Ellis Jr. Let's see if he goes even faster on this lap. Why not? You know, because he's been lopping a couple of hundreds off that lap time pretty much every single lap. So, well, he takes the tow back to the pit lane now. Might be able to get like sort of 2 out laps done and then back in, but
no,
it's gonna be tough.
No, not. No, you'd only get 1 flying lap at it now if you come out the pits, and even then the tyres won't be at optimal. You want at least a minimum of 2 warm-up laps really to get the most out of the tyres on this car. Well, Chadwick, we're having a look at here. He was impressive last time out and did well, but I have noticed it's very, very Scottish on the front row of the grid. Kevin Ellis Jr. and Graham Carroll. You know, you can't really get much more Scottish on the front row of the grid. But Sebastian Job, Josh Thompson, although saying that, Job up into 2nd place now in qualifying.
Only by a couple of hundredths of a second over Graham Carroll as well, so that's a great lap time put in by Sebastian Job, and well, if he gets himself a good start, then he can potentially challenge Kevin on a first lap situation here as he wheels it all the way through there, dipping 2 tyres out into the dirt. That seems to be the done thing coming on the exit there, as Sebastian Job, well, this is going to be his last attempt at a fast qualifying time here. He pulls it towards the outside of the circuit, or rather driver's right-hand side of the circuit, off the racing line to take the tow back to the pit lane. So that is Sebastian Job's qualifying over and done with. So it's the front 2, actually, that have their qualifyings done. You can see them on pit lane. So Carroll is still out there and on a lap. These guys have been able to complete a healthy amount of laps in this qualifying session. Graham Carroll, for example, is on his 18th lap at the moment. So, you know, you get lots of attempts here, and he does come across the line and does go marginally faster than Sebastian Job. So the all-Scottish front row, well, it's back.
Certainly is, but this is the thing with this venue. You can't arrange any slipstream or anything like that. You just have to get out there and put lap in after lap in after lap in. But that'll be the end of qualifying here, Connery.
It absolutely will be no extra time for these drivers to complete their final laps here. We do transfer straight over into the first race. Remember, 25 minutes, both races here today. The second race will have a reverse grid element for the top 6 based on the results of race number 1. But we'll get to that in just a bit as we have race number 1 to get out of the way with first, with Kevin Ellis Jr. on the front row for Apex Racing Team with his tied championship leader Graham Carroll in P2, an all-Scottish front row for a Scottish circuit, which is fantastic to see. Sebastian Job P3 with Josh Thompson in P4 with Will Chadwick continuing on a good run of form from last event at Alton Park. He sits in P5 here on the grid for the first race at Knockhill with Jamie Moon in P6 for Team 75 Bernard by Sim RC. Josh Poulan will start in 7th place with Will Tregurtha in P8. Peter Berryman was maybe expecting a little bit more from that qualifying. He resides in P9 with Thomas Cope in P10. Of course, for those drivers, P9, P10, or sort of all the drivers in this region, in fact, they're looking for to get a little bit further up the grid to get themselves reverse grip pole position for finishing in 6th place. Daniel McCauley lines up in P11 for Apex with Conan Verne in 12th place for the R8G Academy machine. Having a little bit of a look further down the field, we got Craig Williams starting in 13th with Brandon Blakesley in P14. Leon Penn will start in 15th with Daniel Thomas in 16th. Dane Baird will start in 17th today with John Derrick in P18. And that is all 18 cars setting themselves a qualifying time here. 18 car starting grid. There were a couple of drivers that I noticed giving this race a bit of a miss for reasons, well, only they know. But we get ourselves our gridding procedure underway here at Knockhill, and well, it's quite a short run down in towards turn number 1, and the first sector here not really conducive to side-by-side racing, so we'll have to see how this turns out.
I mean, you can go too wide through Duffer's Dip and through Leslie's. You usually see somebody try and make a move into McIntyre turn number 3 as well, that tight right-hander. But you've got to be careful with that one not to make any contact. You really need to be more single file by the time you reach the chicane. The main overtakes that you'll find around here, and then the exit of the chicane into Clark Curve, that is one of the main overtaking spots, along with Taylor's after the railway straight out into that hairpin at the end of the lap. Those are the main sort of 2 overtaking spots around this track.
Indeed they are, but will the drivers be able to use them to the best of their ability? That's the question heading into this one. Our first time at the Knockhill racing circuit in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup, Great Britain, round number 9 of the championship, about to get itself underway. Drivers waiting for that starting signal, of course. You see Sebastian Job there in that Apex Racing Team car in pole position. What can he do? He needs a good launch here today to secure himself ahead of his compatriot of Graham Carroll. We're underway then for race number 9 of the championship here at Knockhill. A bit of fanning out in the background as we get this race started. Graham Carroll looking towards the inside through turn number 1 for the race lead, as everyone just tries to negotiate their own little bit of space here through the first sector. Josh Thompson looking to make up positions early on. We've got a spinner at the back though, and a big stack up with multiple bits of contact back there. But the front of the field relatively unscathed.
Pete Berryman didn't even take the start here. He did not take the start of this race. Brandon Blakesley was involved in that instant, along with Conan Wern and I think Daniel Thomas as well. But that's the big news. Pete Berryman not even taking the start there.
Yeah, good job you noticed that one. Yeah, that's going to be one of the nails in the coffin with regards to the championship, you would have to argue, for Peter Berryman, as we've got ourselves our lap 1 done already, on towards lap number 2. There was a little bit of a look from Graham Carroll and Kevin Ellis Jr. through that first sector of that first lap, but wasn't able to get anything done whatsoever. They're all strung out single file now as they head their way through the chicane for the second time in this event. We've got Brandon Blakesley as, there's an Apex car off in the background that decided to go for a trip into the grass rather than anything else. That's Daniel McCauley dropping further down the order. So I'm afraid we're going to get a few retirements here in the early stages of race number 1 due to those incidents. Williams Esports car sending it down the inside. That's Will Tregurtha on pool and there for P7 at the end of the lap.
Yeah, we said it's fast and frenetic around here. Already end of lap 2, going on to lap 3. Poulon's not giving this one up. You see this move happen. There's a little squeeze. Tregurtha holds onto that position though into McIntyre. But yeah, that finally got that position sorted out for him. But yeah, it just shows us, here's a look at what happened to poor Dan McCauley. I think he just got onto the he's already losing it before, and then it just touches the gravel, which completely sends it round. Doesn't hit any walls though, so does carry on, and will keep going in this race. On the Brandon Blakesley on pit road.
Yeah, so a couple of casualties already in this race, but it seems like we've still got these packs together, which is very good to see as we get a couple of laps under our belts already here at Knockhill Racing Circuit. Kevin Ellis Jr. leads from Graham Carroll, from Sebastian Job, from Josh Thompson. That is your top 4. In terms of big movers in this race already, well, we've got Leon Penn up from P15 to P11. We got ourselves Dane Baird from P17 up into P12, so he's been able to keep his nose clean and foul through on those incidents that we had early on. You can see those positions gained on the left-hand side. Baird and Derek gaining 4 positions apiece out of this one. You sometimes get quite a big reward by keeping yourself out of trouble.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's part of the challenge of this track, is keeping it on the grey stuff here. And Graham Carroll, he had a big wiggle on the exit of the chicane. He was coming off of the curb on the left hand side on corner exit, just caught the grass and just had a little bit of a wiggle, sorted himself out, and he's able to carry on. But yeah, these drivers at the front, you can see how much they're launching the car, all 4 wheels off the ground over the chicane. once you take flight, you've not got any tyres to turn your car, so you're in that direction, and if you catch that wrong, if you take flight in the wrong direction, it sends you out into the gravel trap. So you've got to be careful through that chicane. But this is a nice little trio, isn't it? Will Tregurtha, Josh Poulin, and Thomas Kopp battling it out for 7th place. But I think they want to all be looking forward towards Jamie Moon.
They will be, because that is reverse grid pole position. That's where the number 75 is of Moon for the moment. So that's what these drivers from 7th and back want to be going for, because that gives them, again, reverse grid pole position for race number 2 and a good chance at scoring some very decent points indeed. Josh Poulin all out of shape across the gravel. He goes well held, though. Although he loses a couple of positions, he keeps the car clean.
Fortunately, only lost 1 place in all of that. That was incredible. But as I said just a moment ago, you get that launch wrong, it positions your car wrong in mid-air, you land funny, it wiggles the car, you're off into the gravel. Sometimes you get spat around and into the tyre wall, and that's the end of your race. So fortunately for Josh, able to carry on losing 1 place, but we've got a queue of cars are showing on my timing screen. Starting off from Jamie Moon, Will Tregurtha has been gaining. Thomas Kopp's getting dragged along with him, and then it's Josh, Craig Williams, and Leon Penn who are all trying to keep on their coattails. As Josh has actually lost 2 more places. Yeah,
so was that the chicane again? I wonder. It's been a bit of a nightmare for him today as the into Taylor's hairpin they go. No absolute sends down the inside this time around. But yeah, that's unfortunate there for Poulin. Sometimes, you know, drivers get them inside their own heads with regards to the mistakes. You know, if you make 1 mistake one time, then there's a chance you might make the same mistake through that same section of the circuit just 1 lap later. But we're hoping that's not happened to Josh Poulin. We didn't quite see it on our live screens. But it's going to be a bit of a long road back from this point after losing those handful of positions. So down into P11 now for number 33. Things have been relatively quiet at the front of the order as Ellis Jr. trying to extend that gap up to around about a second, is about 2/10 off of doing so for the moment, all the way back to Graham Carroll. Sebastian Job a bit further behind as well, another second adrift of Carroll in P3. So things starting to spread out for the race lead, but at least the mid-pack are keeping themselves, keeping themselves busy.
Busy is one word, entertained is another as well, as they're going through. Craig Williams, who he races in a variety of different cars, but he really seems to prefer the more sort of GT style car. He's up there in 9th place now. Good position for him in this one. Leon Penn, we've seen he's had flashes of promising speed as Leon, but unfortunately seems to get involved in incidents throughout the early stages of this championship. Hopefully, for Leon's sake, he can have a good run here. Oh, having a little look at the hairpin, but that wasn't really on there, and it is really tricky just how steep that hairpin is.
Yeah, it is. It's sort of deceivingly simple. You think, oh, it's just going to be a regular hairpin. But no, you have that big elevation change, like right through the middle of the corner. There was one of our static shots that we used for the intro was made that very, very evident when you got close to the ground. You just see how much of a change of gradient it is coming through there. And, well, the dynamics of the car react a little bit differently to when the tracks undulate into when it's completely flat. So simple vehicle dynamics for you there. But the spell for P9 rages on with Craig A. Williams at the head of the train. Of course, Craig has had not too many ideal races this season. Again, he's been one of those drivers that's been getting caught up in incidents that perhaps aren't really his fault, but inside the top 10 for this one now, gaining a handful of spots from where he started in P13. A positive race number 1 so far for Craig Williams, but he is aware that he needs to keep Leon Penn and Josh Poulin behind him.
Conan Wern's on pit road and has been for up at the front. The timing tower, and Graham Carroll up into the lead here, although Ellis Jr. is fighting this one. Obviously Ellis must have made a mistake, but Carroll trying to go around the long way.
Through tailers they come, and sliding across the nose was Kevin Ellis Jr. Goes to the inside, outside, trying to break the draft on the way down the pit straight here. Carroll to the inside, has a slightly open door. It was only ajar though, and Carroll's not able to do anything with it. And well, Kevin Ellis Jr. maintains the race lead. I have to wonder what caused that entire situation, because the gap was getting up to around about a second between P1 and P2, and all of a sudden that was all gobbled up by Graham Carroll. I'm winding it back on my own view. Yeah, it was Kevin Ellis Jr. through the chicane, through the exit of the chicane, just got the line all wrong, got himself spat out into the gravel, and all that time that he worked so hard to gain is lost as a big look to the inside for Carroll.
It just goes to show one little mistake around this track and it can cost you here. And Kevin Ellis Jr. nearly paid the price of the lead. They are joint championship leaders, don't forget, are Kevin and Graham, and they are fighting it out. This is intense. Here's a look at the replay, and look, he landed on that right-hand curb the wrong way. It spat him out wide, and then he had to immediately go on the defence to try and hold off Graham Carroll. Fortunately for Kevin's sake, he did, but Graham now, he can smell a victory here, can't he, Connery?
Yep, he can. He was getting more and more adrift as time goes on, and here comes the big send down the inside at Taylor's, your final corner here at Knockhill. He's not going to get the drive off the corner, however, Kevin Ellis Jr. will inch his way ahead, but then that side draft comes into effect. Now Carroll's gaining a bit of speed on the way down in towards turn number 1, Duffer's Dip here. As Carroll, was there a bit of contact? I'm not too sure. As Carroll spins on his way in towards McIntyre, he couldn't afford for that to happen. Ellis Jr. is gaining all the points delta coming out of this race now as Carroll falls down the order, down in towards P8. I don't think there was any contact. Carroll lost control of the car coming down the hill.
It's so difficult to go too wide through turns 1 and 2. Here we go on board with Carroll. You've got Ellis Jr. on the left-hand side. Yeah, that's close, and yeah, those two. Graham is already saying in the session chat, unreal. Well, unfortunately, Graham, that's the way things turn out in this series, and you've got to just get your head down. What he's got to try and do now is get with Thomas Cope and Will Tregurtha and get those positions so you can get a reverse grid pole now.
Yeah, that's got to be the goal. There was big wiggle there from Sebastian Job. That was not a very settled car. And now Josh Thompson can come at him. And Thompson's gained the position up onto the second step of the podium here in race number 1. So for the Red Bull Racing Esports guys, it hasn't been a great last lap, has it? As Job, well, he was able to control the car, unlike his teammate. But that is just all come apart a little bit for Red Bull Racing Esports, because now Thompson's up into one of his best point scores of this season, and Ellis Jr. is just running away at the front of the field by 2 seconds.
He certainly is, and he's enjoying it now. Thompson a bit wide at McIntyre, sort of Job clattering over the curbs, and he's got to be careful now because Will Chadwick behind, he's putting some pressure on. We saw, I said, Will had the race meeting of the season so far for him last time out. He's putting the pressure on here as Will, and he wants to try and get our reigning champion and get his position. As we see Will there giving us that look behind the scenes at what he's doing right now, very calm, and that's what you have to be. Don't have any emotion whilst you're actually driving the car. Once you finish the race, yeah, let all that emotion out, but right now just staying in the line astern for the time being, not really progressing forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we had a bit of an adrenaline injection there over the last couple of laps with everything happening at the very front as we ride on board with Will Chadwick's Team Fordzilla car. Of course, it's always interesting with the sponsorship there, but as we get ourselves back to the TV cams, and well, I did see on the timing screen there was a little bit of a fight developing between Craig Williams and Josh Poulan, I believe that was. They were fighting side by side through the exit of the final corner and all the way through the first sector on that last lap. So they've been having a great little fight back here for those positions just inside of the top 10. So yeah, P10, P11 is where they're residing at the moment. So getting in towards the second half of the race now. Ellis Jr. is sort of in cruising mode at the front because he's now got a 2.5 second gap over Thompson. Of course, can't rest in his laurels, can't make another mistake like he did a good couple of laps ago. Otherwise, that race lead will come under threat. So Will. Whoa.
That's Chadwick. That was at Clark Curve, and he got all over the curbing there. There's Williams, and contact between the two of them. In fact, around go both of them. So Williams got collected on the end of that one. Still back to the front though. This is a crazy, crazy race, and we've still got 10.5 minutes to go. We have lost John Derrick from this race now, so we've only got 14 remaining running, and the top 15 score points.
Let's have another look at it then. The Craig setup shop car down towards the inside, and contact coming off the corner, and well, little bit of I guess they kind of both ruined their own races there with regards to the contact there. So I guess everything's equal between them.
Oh, now Cope has made his way past Will Tregurtha then, so Thomas Cope on for a really good result. And there's Graham Carroll, he's loitering. He will not be in a good mood right now. He will want to just get past as quick as he can to get into 6th place. That's what his target is right now. These two, however, they're battling away, and Graham can almost afford to sit back and see what they do.
Well, side by side into turn 1 is what they do. They almost make door-to-door contact coming out of turn number 1. In towards McIntyre as they come. Cope with a bad line, gives the run to Graham Carroll, but he's trying to crack open the inside there on the apex, but Cope was swinging his car right across as we ride on board with Carroll now, angling to the inside for Clark, and they're leaning on each other, coming across the exit curb. Graham Carroll elbows out. He's got the runner speed down the railway straight. Should be able to get quite ahead on the way in towards Taylor's. A slightly compromised line, but Cope is not able to capitalise with the traction off the corner. 9 minutes to go. Carroll up into P7. One more to go. A driver second down the road to get himself reverse grid pole position.
And that's what I said at the start of the qualifying coverage. That run out of the chicane, if you can get the run out of there into Clark Curve, then that is an overtaking opportunity. It's hard work, you have to make it work, but it worked for Graham in that instance. And look at this, how quickly he's gained on Will Tregurtha in front of him as well. That's not an easy task. Will Tregurtha is a British GT Championship driver, is a GT4 champion in the past. He is a talented driver. He's raced in the Bathurst 12 hours. He's raced in all sorts. So this is great stuff to watch.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It is. We've seen some great fighting here. Of course, we've seen bits of contact. It comes with the territory here at Knockhill, I would argue. But for Graham Carroll, eyes on the prize now. The circumstances have changed somewhat. Of course, earlier on, he was trying to fight for the race lead. Now, it's a fight for pole position in race number 2. And what can Will Tregurtha do to hold on to this one? Of course, a wealth of experience in the real world and, of course, in sim racing as well. But can he keep a World Championship driver behind him? That's the issue, as Graham Carroll on his way around the outside at Taylor's Bend. The battle for P6, that crucial reverse grid pole position. A little bit of a tap coming off the corner, front to rear contact. Will is able to keep himself ahead, though. Graham will get the slipstream on the way down the pit straight here. However little of it that you can get here, but it's enough to potentially open up the inside for turn number 1. A little bit of a compromised line there from Tregurtha. He's all over the place on the way in towards McIntyre's as Carroll's able to get underneath him here. On the way up and towards the chicane. Great car control from Carroll as there's Tregurtha out into the gravel. He's going to lose the spot. He loses reverse grid pole position to Carroll, and now Thomas Cope's gained a spot as well.
Oh, that was brilliant driving from Carroll to set him up into McIntyre's to force the tight line, try and get the cut under. There goes Tregurtha back again. He's not hanging around. He wants back at Graham Carroll, but I think Carroll's going to have that little bit more pace than Will, and will pull away from these two now. But my goodness, that was quite intense. A few corners there for those drivers, but yeah, Tregurtha now having to try and hang on to 7th place.
Yeah, fantastic racing once again, and well, I think Graham Carroll will be pulling away from this fight now. He's going to be by far the faster car in clear air, so it's unlikely that Tregurtha and Cope can lock onto the back of him and make it a fight for that reverse grip pole position inside these final 6 minutes. I have been wrong before, and of course the mistakes do come at this circuit. It's even for the very experienced drivers. I wouldn't say never, but just unlikely as we get ourselves inside of that 6 minutes to go. Tregurtha, of course, gaining that spot back on Thomas Cope up into P7, still a decent point score, but we'll have to see how the rest of this race pans out, because remember, we've got Josh Thompson and Sebastian Job. Look at how all the ruins, the paint is there on Sebastian Job's car. Oh, Josh Thompson all out of shape, all over the curb, and now this is Job's opportunity to get himself up into 2nd place. 4 seconds behind your race leader still, so the race win is probably not going to happen at this point, but a P2 finish would still very much help Sebastian Job's situation.
Oh, but that's what Sebastian needed. He had to be patient. He had to wait for a mistake there from Josh Thompson. It finally came on the exit of Clark Curve. He just got it a little bit too far wide, did Josh. Got over the curb, and there's a nasty bump on the end of that curb. That's what Josh found. Here's Will Chadwick now, his view of things. You can see in front, but Sebastian Job, I think, will just be able to now just slightly pull away from these two.
Well, Will was able to get a good points haul at Alton Park, and, well, potentially might be on for one here at Knockhill as well. If he's able to get himself up into the podium, that would be a fantastic performance for the Team Fordzilla driver. This is the battle for 2nd, of course. Let's see if Sebastian Job's able to pull away. It's not really been a guarantee. Thompson, very, very quick driver. Of course, you know, he does tend to get himself caught up in incidents. I mean, that's happened quite a bit in the Porsche Carrera Esports Supercup. That's some of these drivers also compete in, which is the sort of international version of this tournament, is the best way I can describe it. But for Will Chadwick, well, he's got 2 World Championship drivers ahead of him. Let's see if he can get stuck in.
Yeah, why not? And I keep on saying this, but to improve yourself as a driver, you've got to compete against the best. You've got to try and race against the best and see how you match up and see where you can improve as well, how you can improve out there as they come across the line once again. But yeah, it's certainly a great series for someone like Will to really test himself. 3 World Championship drivers in front. He's got 1 behind as well in Graham Carroll. So yeah, not going too bad for him. But Sebastian Job, he's only, what, 6 points off of the championship lead going into this round of the championship. You get a bonus point for the fastest lap, don't forget, as well. Pole position is a bonus point as well. So Kevin Ellis Jr. helped himself a little bit getting pole position, and he's now almost 5 seconds in front of this pack.
5 seconds is a lot on this racetrack when you consider the lap times are about 47 seconds. It's pretty crazy. So for Kevin Ellis Jr., it should be plain sailing all the way to the end. So hopefully, again, commentator's curse is the thing. I'm touching wood and making sure that I don't make that a bad omen for him. But yeah, 5 seconds ahead now. Ellis Jr. is absolutely on fire. But still, questions can be asked about P2. Whether it's not Sebastian Job will be able to hold on to this one. He's been managing the gap quite well for the moment. Thompson hasn't had a wealth of opportunities to try and get himself back by. So this might be the order they come across the line in with 2 minutes to go in this race. But again, things can change oh so quickly, especially at this track more than perhaps any other.
I think that is definitely the case. We've still got 3 laps to do, by the way. You know, it's such a short lap. Now, Will Tregurtha has got caught behind him, and now actually Leon Penn has caught up to these two. So the battle for 7th has really ramped up here with Leon getting involved there. 13 drivers still on track because Josh Poulin has just ended up on pit road.
Yep, a certainly different rate of attrition to what we used to seeing here in this one. I mean, it is a very, very tricky circuit, and of course we had a relatively sizable pile-up on the first lap towards the back of the field that has caused a bit of damage, and of course saw Brandon Blakesley exit the event. Of course, we had Peter Berryman not take the start, and it doesn't look like he's been able to get himself back in the session either. So I'm not sure what the problem is there for Peter Berryman, but it's going to be a lot of lost points coming out of this one. But as we watch this battle for 7th rage on between Will Tregurtha, Thomas Cope, Leon Penn, they are running out of time. However, we'll have to see where the leader is once we get ourselves all set. There we go. So there is Ellis Jr. He's heading his way into Taylor's now. So this will be the start of the final lap, Paul.
Yeah, and I was about to say a faultless drive at the front, but it wasn't, because of that mistake at the chicane, and then the battle between himself and Graham Carroll, and we saw how all that panned out. But Kevin Ellis Jr. at the front right now, nice and simple at the front. He just needs to keep it on the grey stuff. But this battle for 7th is still ongoing, and it's still really intense.
It is. Time expires now. Will Tregurtha trying to hold on to P7 from Thomas Cope and Leon Penn behind. He needs to have a clean lap here to have any chance at doing so. Down into the compression they go. A bit of a differing line taken by Thomas Cope there, as they will have to sort out their differences. But meanwhile, at the front, Kevin Ellis Jr. has walked away with it in this second half of the race. Race number 1 is complete. Kevin Ellis Jr. takes it. Of course, like you said, not a flawless drive. Did make some mistakes here in race number 1. But in the end, it's where you are positioned at the checkered flag is the only thing that matters. Here's this battle for P7, heading their way across the line. It is Will Tregurtha that's able to hold on to that one. Our reverse grid pole position sitter will be Graham Carroll. He needs to try and capitalize on that now and try and run away at the front in race 2.
Certainly does. Last of the drivers coming across the line there to finish their races. So, yeah. That was a really intense and exciting opening race, and we've got that inverted grid race to come up shortly.
There we go. So here are your unofficial race results, of course, as always, pending review after the event. Kevin Ellis Jr. takes the race win by over 5 seconds, a country mile here at Knockhill, with Sebastian Job in P2. Josh Thompson P3 with Will Chadwick in P4, Jamie Moon P5, Graham Carroll P6, and your reverse grid pole position sitter. So maybe he can respond to the points delta that he incurred over the course of this race in that one, especially if Kevin Ellis Jr. has trouble. Will Tregurtha in P7 with Thomas Cope in P8. Leon Penn finishes 9th place, and of course we get ourselves Daniel Thomas rounding out the top 10, 29 seconds back off your leader. Craig Williams in P11 with Daniel McCauley P12, Dane Baird in P13, and then you have your retirements: Josh Poulin, John Derrick, Conan Wern, and Brandon Blakesley were not able to get themselves to the checkered flag here today. And I don't think Josh Poulin is going to join us for race 2 either. He has disconnected from the session. So it looks like we're going to get a 16-car starting grid for race number 2. That'll be coming up in we get the grid in about 4 minutes time here, Paul. This is such an important opportunity now for Graham Carroll to recover a point score, or at least a good point score from this race. He has a reverse grid pole position. He has a good couple of cars between himself and Kevin Ellis Jr. Of course, Job will try and make Kevin Ellis Jr.'s life hell back there. This is a golden opportunity. Of course, it's not an ideal day for Graham Carroll, considering what happened in race number 1, but he can make the most out of it here when life gives you lemons, as they say.
Yeah, absolutely, and definitely as we'll have a look at the highlights of the race as well. But yeah, it really was a case of who was able to keep it on track as we're going backwards there. We'll get that pressed forwards next time. But it's really about keeping it on track, not making those mistakes that we saw out there, keeping the car in one piece as well. You could pick up damage through the chicane if you hit the chicane wrong. So there's things like that. But Graham Carroll, he needs to get just the best launch that he can from the start of this race and get on through to just try and pull away from the rest of them. For Kevin Ellis Jr., yes, he's got that battle with Sebastian Job. He is going to have to really be careful with that one. He can't afford any contact. That's the main thing. He can't afford to get involved in any incidents. And the thing is, because you're starting 6th place as well, you're in that pack. You're at the front of that mid-pack there. And we saw in race 1 how there was an incident that caught out 3 cars at turn 3 at McIntyre. So you've got to be careful when you're Kevin Ellis Jr. right now.
Yeah, you really do. You can't afford to get involved in any shenanigans in race 2 because, well, your main championship rival, at least for the moment, is in P1. It's to start this race. So as long as Carroll gets a clean start and Moon or Chadwick doesn't challenge him at any point over the first couple of laps, pull the gap. Here's the highlights, of course. We got ourselves the race start, everyone fanning out, but of course the issues behind at the very rear of the pack initially, and drivers are struggling with the circuit, struggling with trying to race around each other at with such tight confines, but we did have a fantastic fight for the race lead, didn't we?
Oh, absolutely. The early goings, with Kevin Ellis Jr. and Graham Carroll. Graham has actually apologised for a little bit of contact at turn 1, and he's said it's not Kevin's fault, is that which happened to Graham down at Leslie's. There was the mistake from Sebastian Job that allowed Josh Thompson to go by, but then Graham Carroll, brilliant move down into Clark Curve, squeeze given there to Thomas Cup. Cup got on the curb, and that cost him a little bit of time. But at the front, Kevin Ellis Jr. took the checkered flag.
Indeed he did. So we're all set, though, for race number 2 of the afternoon here at Knockhill. In about 10 seconds, we'll get ourselves transferred over into that race session, and we can show you the starting grid for the second race here today. Of course, important for many reasons, this one. I mean, we've already covered them. Golden opportunity for Graham Carroll to take a race win out of today. And, of course, for Kevin Ellis Jr., it's going to be all about keeping it clean. Same with Sebastian Job as well. It's going to be tough with both of them on the circuit in the same piece of real estate, though, while they're trying to deal with all of the slower traffic that benefited from the reverse grid ahead of them. Here's a look at your starting grid then. Of course, basically the results of race 1, but with the top 6 reversed. So it will be Graham Carroll on pole position with Jamie Moon on that front row as well. Great opportunity for that 75 to get himself stuck in with Will Chadwick in P3 with Josh Thompson starting P4. Then your 2 front runners start P5 and 6. That's Sebastian Job and Kevin Ellis Jr. sharing a row together back there. Will Tregurtha, though, he lines up in P7 with Thomas Cope in P8. Leon Penn will start in 9th with Daniel Thomas in P10. Craig Williams starts in 11th with Daniel McCauley starting in 12th place for race number 2. Dane Baird for Igbex Racing Team starts in 13th with Josh Poulan in P14 in this one. But of course, I don't think he will take the start due to not being in the server. John Derrick P15 with Conan Wern in P16. Brandon Blakesley, and of course we won't see Peter Berryman either, as he's also having issues, it seems. So it will be a 16-car starting grid here today, as without those 2 drivers, as we get ourselves ready and waiting for the drivers to take themselves to the grid. We've got about 2 minutes to get queued up here, Paul. This is going to be quite a tension-filled start, especially considering the issues that we saw in race number 1 with drivers getting all sorts of out of sections of circuit, such as the chicane.
Yeah, absolutely, and we've seen that even the best will make a mistake around this track. You know, Sebastian Job, Kevin Ellis Jr., both with their issues at the chicane. It is a track that punishes you. It's a proper old school track, and a real challenge that the drivers, well, some drivers enjoy, some are not enjoying it so far, I think it's safe to say, but it's one that I've always really relished to race around. I may not be the fastest, but I certainly love doing racing around this track.
Yeah, and it can deliver some great racing. I mean, we saw some of that in race number 1. So let's hope for the same in race number 2 as drivers slowly but surely get themselves onto the starting grid here. Of course, it was a little bit chaotic on lap number 1 in race number 1, especially towards the back of the field where we had a car spun in front of traffic. So hopefully the same situation does not happen in this race start and everyone is able to get themselves the first lap in the books in a relatively unscathed fashion. But time is of the essence, especially for those drivers that are starting in P5, P6 because of the reverse grid. Sebastian Job and Kevin Ellis Jr., they want to press forward as fast as possible, especially Kevin, considering, well, he needs to try and minimize the points lost to Graham Carroll. He's in the early portions of the race. Depending on how fast he can follow through the traffic, he might even be able to get himself up towards the front, depending if Graham Carroll makes any mistakes as well. We're very fortunate to have you join us here for this round of the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain, race number 10 at Knockhill, about to get itself underway. Race number 10 of the championship, of course, race number 2 of the day. And we get the green flag. We're racing down in towards the first dip once again here in this one as we get ourselves William Chadwick and the driver of Josh Thompson side by side for P3 in the early goings here. There's a big disagreement, there's big contact as Job is off, and of course Josh Thompson also with contact with Will Chadwick, as Will Chadwick spins of his own accord right in front of traffic, causes everyone to stack up. It's a huge issue on this initial lap.
Oh, Job got pushed wide at McIntyre's. Josh Thompson has contact with Will Chadwick that spins him around. Chadwick loses it himself at the chicane. My goodness, Kevin Ellis Jr., well, he's delighted with this. He's up to 3rd place in all of this.
Yeah, it seems like the Red Sea parted for him as we come across the line to complete the first lap here. Sebastian Job all over the back of Will Chagurtha. He's going to angle to the inside for turn number 1. Can't get anything done through there, though. Has to be careful with the line. These curbs can really spit you onto the, well, the non-preferred part of the circuit, and you have a big job to try and recover that, as we see a little bit of fanning out behind as well. Daniel Thomas versus Daniel McCauley. There's contact off the corner. Again, they're spinning in front of traffic. Craig Williams is caught up in that one as well. Come on, boys. You know you can do a little bit better than this with all these bits of contact and all these incidents. Thomas
was completely up on 2 wheels, got into the side of Dan McCauley. Very little that Dan McCauley could do in all of that. And, of course, collects the innocent party and Craig Williams involved in that. Thomas has taken the tour back to the pit lane. He's done for today's race. But still, at the front, Carroll and Moon, they are a mile away. Well, good luck. Let's have a look at all the replays here of what happened. Sebastian Job, so it was Will Chagurtha who made a move on Job that forced him wide. There's the contact between Chadwick and Thompson. Chadwick then just gets it wrong through the chicane. How Kevin Ellis Jr. got out of that, I do not know. I would love to have a look from Ellis Jr.'s point of view of all of that, because he would have had a front row seat.
Yeah, we'll have to wait though as battle in and around P4. Well, P5 behind. Thomas Cope trying to sling one down the inside of Leon Penn, or rather defending from Leon Penn, as was that situation. But what a chaotic race start here for race number 2. It was, you could tell the drivers were trying to press forward as quickly as possible, but it was to some of their detriment, especially William Chadwick down in P14, as we get to see a replay of things here once again. There's the issue with the number 60 car. There's Craig Williams in the number 36 getting involved in a situation that was not his own doing, it seems. And, well, there's, well, out of all of that, there's only one retirement. So Thomas there down in the number 60 car, down in P16, is the only retirement from this race. So everyone, miraculously, have been able to keep themselves going.
I'll tell you what, the real world Porsche Carrera Cup Great Britain will be have a job on trying to match the excitement on this when they come here to Knockhill on the 30th and 31st of July. So definitely these drivers, they are putting on a heck of a show. Maybe not entirely how we would like to have them put on a show, but certainly what a tremendous opportunity for Jamie Moon. He started on pole position last time, didn't he, for the second race at Alton Park. Got a terrible start, which forced him down the order. This time, however, he's right there with Graham Carroll.
Yes, Carroll is pulling away, though, up to 0.8 of a second now as they head their way across the line to get themselves onto lap number 6. That's just how fast the laps go by here at the Knockhill circuit, with lap times around about 47, 48 seconds each time they head their way around. So good job this is a timed race then, as you know, that's just the situation that we are handed. In race number 1, how many laps did we get ourselves done? It looks like we got ourselves done 32 laps in race number 1, and of course there's no difference in terms of the time allotted for race number 2, so we should get about that for this one as well.
Yeah, especially if Graham Carroll keeps up this pace at the front of the field. Josh Thompson has just moved ahead of Conan Wern, as that's up a position down in 13th. He will not be happy with Will Chadwick, Will Josh. Will Chadwick probably won't be happy with Josh or himself, I might add as well, for the mistake that he had through the chicane. But things have calmed down now. There you go. There's the two Apex Academy coloured cars together. So Dan McCauley and Dane Baird together on track. Wow. Dan McCauley, I said you get all 4 wheels off the track there. That was a prime example of it.
Leaping through the air.
Like
have
a
you ever
salmon.
have you ever seen a Porsche fly? There we go. That's the situation there. As in towards tail as they go. No one close enough to be able to make a move this time around, and well, drivers have been preferring to try and get the drive off the corner as well to make a challenge in towards Duffer's Dip. But this time, no such a thing. There's a car towards the inside there, maybe perhaps trying to break the draft a little bit to cars behind. Chadwick and Blakesley, they'd have a swap for position there down in P11. So Chadwick trying to recover some form of decent point scoring result out of race number 2. He's got a long way to go, though, to be able to do that. But thankfully, he has quite a bit of time left on the clock. Just shy of 19 minutes left to go in this one. I'm just thinking back to that lap number 1. What a gift for Kevin Ellis Jr. that was, to keep himself out of all that, keep his nose clean with all the chaos happening ahead of him. Up into P3, 1.1 seconds back off of Moon, and you would argue that Kevin Ellis Jr. is the faster of the two in clear air, so I think that gap is going to be coming down, and potentially Ellis Jr. might get himself up into second place by the time this is done.
Yeah, and you think Graham Carroll finished that first race down in 6th place after that incident down at McIntyre's. And look at the bounce that Tregerthen was getting on there. Not ideal. And still, these two have been stuck together basically all afternoon of Tregerthen and Cope. Tregerthen, I think he'll be glad that this is a virtual car and not the real world car, because he would have ended up with a rather sore backside from the bounce that was taken on there. Leon Penn, he's trying to take advantage of all of this as well. This is a 3-car battle for 5th place.
Gets the drive off of the corner as well. Super crucial on the way around the outside at Duffer's Dip, but Cope commits on the brakes though. Can he get the car stopped? He can. So able to defend that position quite well there is the driver of the number 64 car. Penn will have to try and wait and see if he can get by another time. And with a bad line through the chicane, he's going to lose another good couple of tenths of a second and fall a little bit adrift off the back of Thomas Cope.
And again, we're getting that prime example right there of one little mistake and you end up losing time. Speaking of losing time, Will Chadwick has got ahead of John Derrick, who's got a bit of damage to the front of that car. Certainly need to go into a Porsche service centre to get that sorted out. Now, Blakesley has jumped out of the way of Josh Thompson. I think he realises that Tregurtha and Thompson were not the battle that he has, and it's easier for him to just let them by, not fight, and try and use them to drag himself forward to those that he has got the fight with, likes of John Derrick and Dane Baird, for example.
You do lose less time by letting someone go that's obviously faster than you compared to trying to fight at them with an extended side-by-side battle that you might end up losing anyway. That's perhaps the logic for Blakesley coming into that one. Chadwick, a look to the inside. It was but a look, though, as John Derrick also looks quite threatening there in the background. As we head towards, well, Kevin Ellis, I said this gap was going to close up, well, maybe not relatively quickly, but it has closed up quickly. And now Kevin Ellis Jr. is looking like he can get himself P2. And if he can get this done quickly, he has about 15 minutes to play with to try and get onto the back of Carroll for the race leads.
And of course, every driver using the exact same setup as well. So it's all about the driver ability. There goes Kevin down the inside. Jamie Moon didn't put up the biggest of fights there. And that means that Kevin moves ahead. Now, if you're Moon, you try and hang on to his coattails and try and pull yourself forward in that one. And, well, Will Chadwick, he's not giving this one up. And he's going for the move now on Dane Baird.
Yeah, Dane Baird will get a little bit of a run down in towards 10 number 1. They're absolutely level into the braking zone. Here comes the up and under for Baird, but oh, look at the defensive lines there from Will Chadwick. Lots of shenanigans going on, deliberately going slow in the middle of the track through the corner just to try and put off cars behind. Through the chicane they go, careful on the exit here. As, well, Josh Thompson lost a little bit of speed coming onto the exit curb there. Not ideal. Can't quite lock onto the back of Dane Baird as he was doing previously, but that was a bit of a strange move there from Will Chadwick. Oh, Dane Baird, he's overcommitted on the brakes. He locks up and spins towards the outside of the circuit, and how everyone's avoided that, I don't know.
If you're Will Chadwick, he would have been getting off the brakes. And here comes Thompson. Now, these two have got previous. Thompson's pushed to the grass. He will be absolutely livid that he had the move there. I mean, I was about to say, before all that started kicking off there, Will Chadwick, I've never seen somebody, well, the last time I saw somebody slam a door that hard shut was an ex-girlfriend of mine. But anyway, yeah, Will Chadwick now having to get on the defensive. He would have had to have let go of the brakes going into Taylor's when he saw that spin of Dane Baird behind him, just to make sure that Baird didn't wipe him out with him. But now Thompson, he's got the bit between his teeth. My goodness, that was who was that?
Penn.
That was Penn. No, it's not Penn. Penn is off.
Yeah, but it was contact with Thomas Cope, I believe. Yeah, that's an interesting situation. There.
It was John Derrick. John Derrick who made the lunge down into the hairpin, but this is what's happened to Penn then. And is this going to be contact? You said it was Cope. And yeah.
2 into 1 on the exit of the corner simply doesn't go, I'm afraid. And, well, Leon Penn, not punished for that because he wasn't the instigator of that, you have to argue. He just sort of, ran out of road on the exit of the corner. But 13 minutes left to go then. Let's see if things calm down any, or if things continue to be at the chaotic level that we've had for the last couple of laps. And I have to wonder, once Josh Thompson gets in the, a tenth of a second back behind Will Chadwick, I don't think Thompson's going to take any prisoners at this point. He might have felt quite hard done by the interesting defensive moves that Chadwick was trying to pull off on him and trying to squeeze him off the circuit. I think Thompson might give him some of his own medicine.
Thompson is somebody who can sometimes let his emotions get the better of him. Yeah. And it can cost him out there on track. So he needs to just keep a calm head. Don't go looking for retribution. Just go looking for that position. Gotta keep it nice and calm. And Thompson right now, he knows he's got the pace. This is the thing. He knows he's got the pace. Will has shown a good turn of pace these last 2 rounds of the championship, but Josh, you know, he's not a World Championship driver by accident. He's had to qualify twice for the Porsche Carrera Esports Supercup. And those qualification processes can be brutal, just how, you know, it's the luck of the draw sometimes as to when whether you may avoid any incidents, and you've got to have the pace there as well to match it. So Josh just needs to focus on up. He'll have his spotter in his ear, just say, right, come on, Josh, focus, mate. Get it. Oh, there's a mistake in front as well, and it's Cup ahead of Macaulay.
Indeed it is. Cope will beat him by a car length to the line and is clear on his way down in towards turn number 1. So lost position there for Daniel Macaulay. I'll have to see what's basically instigated all that. It was a bit of a locked brake on the right-hand front tyre for Daniel Macaulay from the driver's perspective, the inside right front tyre. So that's what caused the slow speed coming off the corner, and Thomas Cope able to gain the position up into P6 there. So decent points for the driver of the number 64. Will try and pull away, and he will want to try and lock onto the back of Tregurtha a little bit further down the road there, still within slipstreaming distance. However, that is not that much of an effect here at Knockhill due to the relatively short straights. So you can't rely on it by any means. I'm keeping myself updated with regards to the race lead, because Carroll and Ellis Jr., they are, well, within a second of each other now. So Ellis Jr. is continuing to try and work on that gap, try and close in the Red Bull Racing Esports driver of Carroll, who well, leads this event, and of course, you know, it is his home event as well, benefiting from that reverse grid from race number 1. This is looking like a very good day, though, however, for Kevin Ellis Jr. Even if he does finish P2 at the end of the second race here, it would be a first place and a second place across the day, and, well, will for sure lead the event, or lead the series coming out of this race, and by potentially a relatively healthy margin.
Certainly could, and gained a 1/10 of a second that last lap did Kevin, so he is pushing on. I think Graham is just looking after his tyres, making sure that when it gets to the last part of the race he can really push, but really he needs to be on it right now. We're into that final 10 minutes of the race, and you can see Kevin Ellis, he's really got the bit between his teeth, hasn't he, and he's wanting a double win here.
Yeah. I think that's on the mind for Ellis Jr. He has plenty of space to be able to make this one work as well. It's 2 seconds back to Moon in 3rd place at the moment, so that they can afford to have a couple of laps of side-by-side racing without worrying that Moon is going to get himself involved in any way, shape or form. 9 minutes to get this done, though. It's a good handful of laps here at Knockhill to be able to manage that. Let's see then. Let's see if Graham Carroll's defensive well, moves are up to snuff.
Oh, I mean, Graham is very experienced in the world of both sim racing and in the real world as well. So you don't win the Walter Hayes Trophy by accident, that is for sure. We've got about 11 laps remaining here, Connery. So even though the time is only 8 minutes, there's still plenty of time in this race in terms of laps and opportunities.
There is, and well, Ellis Jr. here, the plan might also just be sit behind and continue to apply the pressure onto the back of that car ahead, through the compression, through the chicane, slightly different lines there. There is a better line that you can take through the chicane compared to the regular line. However, it does risk some damage to your car if you take it. And, of course, it can risk splitting you on the outside of the corner as well. So it's a big gamble if you decide to go for that line. However, if it works out, well, you potentially have the run in towards Clark and be able to try and cause a problem for the car ahead. But a bit of a scruffy end to the lap there for Kevin Ellis Jr. does lose a bit of time.
And that's it, you know, just a little mistake. He lost 3/10, just thereabouts, 3/10 of a second on that final, on that last lap just gone. As well, talk about a drive and a half. Will Tregurtha is in 5th place, Dan McCall is 6th. Will Chadwick on that recovery drive 7th, with Josh Thompson right behind him. Thomas Cope has dropped down a couple of positions through all of that. So Macaulay now trying to do the defensive effort against Will and against Josh.
Let's see then. Let's see if he's able to hold the horde behind him. The race lead getting close once again. It seems like Kevin Ellis Jr., the faster driver at this stage of the race in amongst your top two. Of course, we do have to pay attention to that battle for P6 and back as well, with Will Chadwick involved in the Team Fordzilla car, trying to get onto the back of the Apex Racing Academy car. But again, not all that much happening in that battle for now. But the tension is indeed there, and Graham Carroll in the race leads. Well, Ellis Jr. hasn't quite had a look just yet. So of course, most of that due to the fact that he got a poor run at the hairpin last time around. But all the evidence is pointing towards Ellis Jr. being faster in clear air and forcing Graham to go defensive in towards Taylor's. That's how scared Graham is about the potential for Ellis Jr. to try and at least get alongside into some of these corners.
I don't think he's scared. What he's doing there, Graham, is saying, look, if you're going to make a move, you're either going to go around the outside or you're going to be extremely tight into the hairpin, and I'll get the advantage out of that hairpin. But Kevin, you know, he's a wily driver. Again, seeing those different lines work out, and Graham just carrying that little bit more speed through the chicane. And that's the problem. When you get this close to the car in front of you, it's very difficult to pick up your markers as to where you are on track to get your exact line. So it is tricky when you get to within a couple of tenths of a second of the car in front.
This is going to be a very pressure-filled final 5 minutes of this race for both of them. Carroll in a defensive sense, Ellis Jr. in an offensive sense. Can Ellis Jr. get the perfect, the perfect race day in this one? He got himself onto pole position. He got himself the race 1 win. The race 2 win, certainly a possibility for Kevin Ellis Jr., and that will absolutely pay dividends with regards to championship points at the end of today as well. Carroll, of course, he's had mixed fortunes here today. He had that situation in race number 1 that sent him a little bit further down the field with the mistake through the first sector while in a battle with Kevin Ellis Jr. We'll get ourselves another look at it through Taylor's Bend, and well, nothing doing that time around for Kevin Ellis Jr., but that was the first opportunity that he's had. Carroll keeps it for now.
Kevin realizes, though, that he doesn't need to do anything desperation mode. He just needs to just make sure that he doesn't get involved in any instance here. Here's Graham Carroll's look at this as go over the chicane. But yeah, Kevin Ellis Jr., he realizes as Carroll's going defensive there out of the chicane, he realized that Kevin had the run, and he's going to have the run here.
Yep, he is, and oh, he's going to squeeze Kevin all the way to the side of the circuit. That does allow Carroll to have the inside in towards the hairpin, though Ellis Jr. slightly later on the brakes around the outside. If he can get the traction down, he might have a run, but he doesn't, and has to fall in behind once again. 3.5 minutes to go as the weaving down the pit lane, or rather down the pit straight, starts here at the end of race 2 in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. We have a battle between two drivers that were tied at the very front of the championship coming into today. That's not going to be the case coming out of today, but either way, this is potentially the situation we might look back on at the end of the season if they remain close in the championship, that could win it for either driver.
This is just incredible. We've got about 4 laps remaining in this race now, so if you're Kevin, you either make the move or you sit behind for a second, get yourself some really good points for the championship. Sebastian Job still in 4th place, can't move forward more than that, so he must have a little bit of damage on his car. Meanwhile, Kevin is putting the moves on. It's not moves like Jagger, but it's certainly giving it a good go.
He is, but we're starting to run out of laps at this point. Lap 29, just a handful more to go. Carroll's holding on for now quite comfortably, but he can't afford to make another mistake. He has to be pitch perfect, 2 tires out into the gravel. Gets away with it though, able to keep control of the car, actually gets a run of speed on the way in towards the hairpin this time around, so not under threat this time from Ellis Jr. into the braking zone, where Ellis has been a little bit better on the brakes than Carroll's been able to, coming down into that corner as we ride on board with Kevin Ellis Jr. then to see his view of things in this battle for the race lead at the end of the second race at Knockhill.
Oh, this is tremendous. This is brilliant stuff. I hope you're all enjoying this one, because this is a true battle of two titans of British sim racing right now. And look at the run that Ellis got.
It was a good run and around the outside at Clark as Ellis Jr. out into the gravel, almost loses control of the car. Carroll ends up ahead still by about 0.3 of a second on the brakes into the hairpin. This is certainly not done just yet. The gloves are off in this one, everyone, as we head our way across the line. Still 2 more laps to go in this situation. Ellis Jr., he might have to spend this lap catching up again to open up the opportunity on the final lap, but Ellis Jr. has been so quick and clear air. There's a battle going on behind, by the way, between Chigurtha and Macaulay that we can see at the very top of the screen there, with 55 seconds left to go on the timer now. But I think, for the sake of keeping of the excitement, we do have to keep with this battle for the race leaders. The battle for those positions further behind continues to get hotter and hotter as they go wheel to wheel in through that first sector. This might end in tears. Will Chadwick's behind, trying to find an open door in all of this, with the two drivers going side by side ahead, and the door opens up to the inside for Chadwick as he gains those 2 positions with that incident back there. But we do have to return back to the race leaders because we have 20 seconds left on the clock. This is the start of the final lap here for race number 10 of the championship. Kevin Ellis Jr., he might settle for P2 and the good points that comes with it, but every single racing driver, if the race win is on the cards, you are sure that he's going to go for it, and a good run coming out of the chicane might open up the opportunity for Kevin Ellis Jr. He gets squeezed on the exit curb though. He still has a little bit of an overlap on the way down in towards Taylor's. This is still possible for Kevin Ellis Jr. to get this race win and an absolutely perfect race day. But on the inside, Carroll will get the run. Carroll will keep himself ahead in a stellar defensive drive. Graham Carroll takes the race 2 win here at Knockhill in the Porsche Esports Carrera Cup Great Britain. That was a 10th finish, a great finish, and well done to Carroll to hold on to that. My word, Paul, that was crazy stuff. Ellis Jr., he gave it his all. He wanted that perfect weekend, but it wasn't to be. Carroll recovers points in this championship. Yes, he will continue to be in P2 in the championship. He will lose points overall to Kevin Ellis Jr., but however, what a race at the end there.
That was sensational, and that was some of the best racing all season, I do believe. That was brilliant stuff, and a little tip of the hat to both of those drivers to put on that style of display for those laps was just incredible to watch.
Here are the unofficial race results from race 2 then. Graham Carroll, race winner by, well, just over a 10th of a second back to Kevin Ellis Jr. after a monumental battle at the very end there. Jamie Moon, 3rd place, with Sebastian Job 4th, with Will Chigurtha P5. Will Chadwick will finish P6, with Brandon Blakesley P7, Thomas Cope P8, Samuel Macaulay P9, and Josh Thompson rounding out the top 10 in race 2. Everyone else outside the top 10, that's Leon Penn, Craig Williams, Dane Baird, John Derrick, Conan Wern, and Daniel Thomas give us our 16-car finishing results. 2 drivers, of course, did not start. That's Josh Poulan and Peter Berryman. So we'll have to catch our breath a little bit at the end of that one. That was certainly a race that delivered. We can even take a couple of look at the highlights at the end of race 2 there, Paul. That was crazy stuff. But of course, we have to start at the very beginning with the race start. And you thought that last few laps was chaotic. This was even more so.
Yeah, I mean, Will Chadwick losing it right in front of Ellis Jr. That could have gone a whole lot worse for Ellis Jr. There was more contact there further down your order as well. And then the starting moving forward of Kevin Ellis Jr. He moved himself up to second place with that move, as Will Chadwick as well, making some places further down. I said towards the end, part way through, as there's the spin from Dane Baird. How on earth he didn't collect the drivers, I do not know. Josh Thompson getting squeezed to the grass there by Will Chadwick. And then another one, Thomas Cope on the outside, Leon Penn. They got together. Penn goes around into the wall, carries on going in the end. Dan McCauley locks up into the hairpin. That's Thomas Cope saying, thank you very much, I'll take that position. And well, Thompson managed to get himself ahead, and then look at this. You battle for your lead. Twice Kevin Ellis Jr. got squeezed there. I think Thompson and McCauley, they were being a bit ambitious there to try and go too wide through the chicane. And again, there's that second squeeze from Graham Carroll. Takes the checkered flag. Absolutely breathless race.
That was absolutely incredible. This series seems to deliver as far as the good racing is concerned. We had it up and down the grid in the first season of this championship last year as well. It's great to see these guys able to race in such close confines, especially at a circuit such as this one. But we will go into our post-race segment here. We do have at least one driver ready to get their interview going here, Paul. It is Kevin Ellis Jr., the number 98 Apex Racing Team driver, and I'll drag him into our little room here as well. Paul, take it away with Kevin, who almost had a perfect day.
Yeah, absolutely. So close to getting a perfect result there, Kevin. But let's start with race one then. You got yourself pole position. I mean, my goodness, that was a heck of a time to pull out the bag there. I was impressed by that. Able to get the run at the start. But you and Graham, seems to be a theme around here. The two Scots doing a very, very good job around this track. Talk us through race number one. That was intense for the first half of the race, at least.
Yeah, for sure. You know, I really didn't expect to have that kind of pace today. You know, I felt good. I'd done some laps after Pesc last night, and you know, found a little bit of time, and I was feeling alright coming in. But yeah, like just at the end of practice there, banged in a couple of low eights, and then got into qualifying, and yeah, was just able to really pull the lap out the bag, which is something I've not been able to do this season. It's been really frustrating. You know, starting fourth every single race. But yeah, to really put that kind of lap down. And be even disappointed with it. You know, there's still like 600 or 700s in the first sector that I messed up a little bit on that pole lap. So, yeah, no, obviously it was a great day. Race one was super intense with Graham. You know, I knew the chicane was going to be tough all day. We had one lap there where I just mishit the curb and it fired me off. And then Graham and I were side by side. I think we both did our part, but the sim didn't do its part in that case there. So, yeah, obviously apologies to Graham, but nothing I could have done. We both did what we had to and what we should have done. And it didn't work out for him, unfortunately.
But then we go on to race two. I mean, first of all, lap one. I mean, you had everything happen in front of you in lap one. You had Will Tregurtha pushing Sebastian wide. You had Josh Thompson getting fired off one corner. Then at the chicane, you had Will Chadwick spinning right in front of you. I mean, that must have been heart in mouth stuff from you just for lap one, thinking, oh no, this is the end of my day here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I knew it was going to be crazy, but I didn't bank on it being quite like that. Yeah, I really came into race two not really knowing what to expect. I watched sort of P5, P6 from race one and see how they managed it to try and give me a bit of an idea. And yeah, it all hell kind of broke loose there from turn two onwards, and it was a bit hectic. But yeah, I mean, thankfully we got through it at a bit of a gap. Out back when I think it was Chadwick lost it at the chicane, so I had a bit of space there to kind of brake and get it turned. So thanks to Will Tregurtha for having his kind of head screwed on there and not running through me. But yeah, like to track Graham down from 3.5 seconds as well, like that was when I saw the gap, I was like, it's going to be a bit tough to get the double in from here now. Just, you know, I just tried to lay down the laps, and then once I got within the draft of Jamie, you know, I really started reeling them in quickly, and I could even put a 46.9 in there at some point. It was, yeah, like that was an intense but, you know, really fun race.
Yeah, and I mean, I said at the end of the race there, it was a little sort of tip of the hat from me, because you and Graham, you put on one heck of a show at the end there. I mean, it was, no quarters asked and none taken between the two of you. It's just showing how intense this championship is. You should go in to the next round in the championship lead after being tied on points coming into this round. I mean, just how intense has his last 3 weeks been with you having this, but also the Porsche Carrera Esports Supercup to worry about as well?
Yeah, it's not been an easy few weeks. Mentally it's a grind. Even physically as well. Like spending so many hours in the sim with these direct drive systems now. It is pretty physical, especially around here today. Like my hands are a little bit sore. So yeah, it's really been full on. I was really disappointed with myself last week at Oulton Park. Dropping it from P3 there. I really shouldn't and didn't need to do that. So I was really hard on myself sort of the rest of that day. But thankfully we had like a sort of 1 week turnaround, so I couldn't really sit on it for too long. It was just a case of let's get back in the saddle, let's bounce back, better than we were last week, and just keep our heads down. And yeah, I mean, to bounce back like this, I had a really good result yesterday, another really good result here today. So yeah, there's nothing sweeter than sort of having a bad weekend and thinking it's actually a lot worse than it is, and then you come out today and just put in a good couple races. It feels really good.
Well, Kevin, I mean, it wasn't quite the perfect weekend with a double win, but a first and a second place, you can't really complain at that. Thanks a lot for joining us here, and enjoy a little bit of a rest period for you now. You've got a week off.
Yeah, finally. Thanks very much for having me, guys, and cheers for the broadcast all year. We'll catch you, is it 2 weeks until the next race?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I'll see you in 2 weeks then.
Take it easy. All the best.
Guys.
Well, Connery, I mean, that was just... I mean, Kevin put it into his words. But for me, sensational. Brilliant racing between him and Graham Carroll.
The amount of respect that these two guys have as well is a very welcome thing, because a lot of the times you have these big rivalries and you have they turn sour in a sense. They always try to bully each other out the way, don't give each other room, things like that. I mean, it happens in sim racing, happens in the real world in some very notable instances as well. But these guys, especially Carroll and Dallas Jr., they have such a mutual respect for each other. You saw Carroll apologize for a contact in towards race number 1. It was pretty much instant as well. He was saying sorry for it. And that just goes to show that they respect each other, that the racecraft between them is very, very good as well. Of course, there was a little bit of squeezing here and there, but that's just motorsports. That's just racing. That's just hard racing. Yeah. And it was all fair between them. And if we can get more like that in the rest of the second half of the season, then we're in for an absolute treat.
Yeah, we certainly are, and I mean, what a venue we go to next time. I mean, you think this was exciting. Silverstone on the national layout. We won't be using that pit straight. We'll be using the old pit straight, and it really is basically a four-corner track where you are just flat out for the majority of it. It's going to be slipstream heaven on the national layout.
It absolutely will be. It will be certainly a very different kind of racing compared to what we saw here at Knockhill. Of course, at Knockhill, very limited slipstream opportunities. However, at Silverstone National, everyone's going to keep each other very close together, I would have thought. It's very much a sort of a wild card rounds. Really anyone in the top half of the field could potentially get themselves on the podium for this one, which is certainly an interesting predicament. It's going to be a tough track for those championship contenders as well, when they're having to deal with third parties getting themselves involved, because everyone's kept close together.
Yeah, it's a real challenge as at Silverstone, and you've got to have an element of patience as well around there. And the national circuit, it keeps everyone packed together as well. It's another short lap for us, less than a minute for these drivers, so they're going to be coming thick and fast.
Yep, they absolutely are. But of course, we will have to wait 2 weeks to get ourselves at the Silverstone National Circuit for the next event in this championship. My name's been Connery Maddock. I've been joined by the very wonderful Paul Smith. Some fantastic racing today here at the circuit in Scotland. We head back to England, though, in 2 weeks' time for Silverstone. If the racing's anything like we saw today, then you certainly don't want to miss it. But for now, we will have to say goodbye.